2011, a wall of black water erased entire towns from the map of Japan. Japan swore that day would never repeat itself again. So they built something the world has never seen before, a barrier stretching 400 kilometers along the coast. But one question haunts every engineer who built it. Can any wall truly stop the ocean? Along Japan's coast stands a wall so massive, most people on Earth have never even heard it exists, taller than a 4-story building, running 400 kilometers. It cost $12 billion, roughly the length of New York to Boston and back twice, and every inch of it was built entirely by hand. This wall is now so tall that some residents cannot see the ocean from their own homes anymore, and every meter of it was paid for in grief. One woman said her husband ran toward the sea that day, and she never saw him again. Yet engineers warn if this wall fails, the next tsunami could be deadlier. On March 11, 2011, the ocean floor shifted 50 meters in 3 minutes, displacing 500 kilometers of open ocean. The wave crossed Japan in 30 minutes, arriving not as a wave, but as a moving wall of black water 40 meters tall, and nothing in its path survived. 90% of Japan's seawalls failed in that single hour, and even the world's largest breakwater, worth $1.6 billion, was destroyed in seconds. It did not break from the front. Water topped it and eroded the back face until the foundation simply vanished, teaching engineers the real problem. In one village, a single tall wall kept 3,000 people alive that day, and that village became the blueprint for everything built after. The obvious answer seems simple: build it taller, but here is the brutal truth. This new wall was never designed to stop a wave of that same scale. Most of this wall's true height sits underground, with only about 14 meters showing above the surface along most of the coastline. Engineers modeled every section roughly 200 times in a computer before placing one stone, with height changing constantly, taller on exposed headlands, lower in sheltered bays. 440 separate teams worked simultaneously, since one bankrupt contractor could leave a fatal gap. Zero tolerance was the rule from day one. Survey ships drilled the seabed first, since every section hit a different foundation below: soft clay, dense sand, or hard rock, each needing its own approach. The first task was demolishing the walls that failed in 2011 and studying every failure mode before designing anything new to replace them. 400 kilometers were measured meter by meter before a single machine started digging, a surveying process that alone took months to complete. Workers cleared an entire coastal pine forest, and erosion matting followed every bulldozer within minutes, always, to stop the cleared soil washing away. The tide gave crews only 4 hours a day on the exposed seabed, and every single minute was carefully counted before the water returned. In the soft clay zones, the ground could not even support a bulldozer, so steel road plates spread the load and let machines float above the mud. Crews built the foundation 25 meters below sea level in the active surf zone, where divers now guide 5-ton boulders into position underwater. Engineers could not see the work directly, so they trusted sonar data completely to confirm every single boulder placement below the surface. Between the boulders and the fill sits a critical filter layer. Miss it, and the entire wall slowly bleeds away over time, grain by grain, unnoticed. After weeks underwater, the rubble mound finally broke the surface, protected by a geotextile membrane that stops fine soil migrating into the rubble forever. An uncompacted mound settles unevenly and tilts the wall above it, so every single roller pass across that foundation was preventing a future failure. Engineers used a precise 1 to 1.5 slope angle, since steeper lets boulders slide and flatter means waves simply will not break properly. A brand new platform rose from the ocean itself, and now the real wall construction could finally begin rising up from that underwater base. Steel sheet piles were driven 10 meters into the ocean floor to protect the wall's toe, using a Z-profile that interlocks and transfers shear forces between every pile. That steel wall was built to fight the retreating wave, not the arriving one, since backwash scour pulling water back out to sea is what destroys most foundations. One buried boulder once deflected a 12-meter pile sideways, destroying the alignment, so crews now pre-drill and crush every boulder before the pile drives straight through. 30 dump trucks ran 16-hour shifts nonstop, laying fill in exact 300-millimeter lifts, since a thicker layer means the compactor can never reach the bottom. Inside every wall body sits geotextile reinforcement, like rebar for compacted fill, and every layer had to reach 98% proctor density or the inspector shut the job down. Press a foot on 98% proctor fill, and nothing moves. But at 85%, that same ground sinks 300 millimeters in a single day. Engineers had 18 months to finish before the first tsunami season arrived, with a compacted clay core acting as the wall's internal waterproofing layer. One night of heavy rain caused 600 millimeters of slope to slump, forcing an entire section to be rebuilt from scratch with a new drainage pipe network installed inside. From then on, crews covered every slope with geotextile before any rain arrived, always, without exception, to prevent that same failure repeating. Once the wall reached 10 meters, thousands of concrete panels began installation, the most critical part of the entire process, with sensors embedded inside, letting engineers watch it breathe and settle every day forever. The wall's face had to be perfectly flat before any panel attached, since a single bump would create a dangerous stress concentration once installed. 3 separate materials handled 3 jobs: gripping the seabed, sealing against water, and carrying structural load, working together as one unified wall. If one of these 7-ton panels cracked inside its mold, it ruined the entire week's schedule, and every hairpin bar connecting panel to crown wall mattered, since one missing bar breaks everything. Self-compacting concrete flowed around every bar for a perfectly smooth face, preventing honeycombing that could weaken a panel's ability to resist a tsunami. A wrong concrete slump ruined the entire panel, and one bad batch could fail an entire day's production run across the whole site. Inspectors tapped each panel and listened closely. A solid ring meant good concrete, but a hollow sound meant it got crushed immediately, no matter its cost. Zero tolerance applied to every panel on a tsunami wall. Each one was worth roughly $800, yet still got crushed the moment it failed. These 7-ton panels traveled narrow coastal roads with flagmen at every junction, covering 400 kilometers, one carefully transported panel at a time. The roadbed was leveled to within 5 millimeters, since a single hump could crack the corner of a 7-ton panel before it ever reached the wall. That panel face was built to take a tsunami at 30 kilometers per hour and hold for 100 years, protecting generations not yet born. A 400-millimeter overlap between panels sounds boring, until picturing a tsunami tearing at every joint. But rubber water stops swell when wet, sealing tighter as waves grow bigger. Straight panels could not work on Japan's curved coastline, leaving 20-millimeter gaps where water could undermine everything built below. Engineers designed 37 unique CNC machined panel shapes to close every gap to zero, sealing entire curved bays perfectly along their length. 1 week of work sealed roughly 400 meters, But the 2022 deadline kept counting down, with 440 teams racing simultaneously to finish. The crown wall's nose throws overtopping water back over the seaward side, a single detail protecting thousands of people living just behind the coastline. The crown wall grabs every panel below through hairpin bars, forming one integrated structure instead of individually stacked pieces. The concrete pump boom maxed out at 15 meters, and any failure mid-pour created a dangerous cold joint that could compromise the entire section. Engineers angled the crown wall exactly 10 degrees from vertical, throwing overtopping water outward instead of inward, a simple piece of design genius. The only decoration across 400 kilometers was a stamped wave pattern on the coping, and engineers measured the crown wall's height for 5 years after completion, since monitoring never stopped. 6 different materials worked together inside the wall, each serving its own function, and from the outside, it simply looks gray, hiding enormous complexity. The back of the wall mattered as much as the front, since back-face failure destroyed the old walls. So a landward drain became the escape route for any overtopping water. Massive 32-ton concrete tetrapods were placed along the base, and each one had to interlock properly, or the entire armor layer could shift in the first storm. Each tetrapod's one leg always points upward, catching the next one above it, and that interlocking shape absorbs wave energy on impact. These tetrapods were not placed with precision. They were simply dropped, finding their own stable position naturally, chaos creating order. The gaps between tetrapods were never a weakness. They were the entire mechanism, letting water flow through and dissipate its energy completely as it passes. 1 liter of water gets fully absorbed this way. Now multiply that by 50 million tons of tsunami, calculated using the Hudson equation for wave energy versus armor weight. Roughly 40 tetrapods were produced each day to armor all 400 kilometers, with the production yard running continuously day and night to keep pace. Below, the waterline tetrapods pile up unseen, mapped only by sonar, forming 3 defense lines before the wall itself: the rubble mound, sheet pile toe, and tetrapod armor. A tsunami exhausts much of its energy passing through these 3 lines, and every wall section is now tested inside a wave tank, with some results still unexpected. 443 gaps exist along the wall, each a death trap if a floodgate fails. So floodgate concrete is built twice as thick, where forces concentrate hardest. Crews have only 70 seconds from alarm to sealed gate, triggered automatically by seismic sensors the instant an earthquake starts, with no human needed at all. Each gate maintains 15 millimeters of clearance, moving 50 tons of steel, engineered for 1.5 times its design pressure, installed through 40-kilometer winds. If even one of 14 seals leaks, the gate fails completely. A 2-millimeter gap that leaked 40 liters a minute widened to 20 millimeters under real tsunami pressure. Engineers ground off 2 millimeters and retested, achieving 0 leaks. 3 hours of machining ultimately saved an entire town from potential failure. Even if a driver gets caught in that gap when the alarm triggers, the gate still closes in 70 seconds regardless, stored open at the top, with gravity alone bringing it down if power fails. 443 gates report to one command room, with full closure taking 4 minutes 20 seconds, drilled every March 11th since the original disaster. On cliff sections, there is no beach, so rock bolts drive 2 meters into basalt, and concrete sprayed at 100 kilometers per hour bonds to rock better than concrete poured, making the cliff itself the wall. A submerged breakwater trips waves 200 meters offshore, and crews once sank a 60,000-ton concrete box through rough swells to 63 meters, watching a tugboat lose steerage in 30-knot winds, and the box drift 8 meters off target. The rebuilt Kamaishi breakwater became stronger than the world record structure it replaced, proving one clear philosophy: always build back stronger than before. An independent inspector held authority to fail any section and order demolition, with just 2 millimeters of carbonation allowed, so reinforcement stays protected from sea air for a century. Engineers measured only 14 millimeters of differential settlement across 400 kilometers of sandy ground in 2 years, an exceptional result for such unstable terrain. When a real 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck, all 443 gates closed simultaneously, and the wall showed 0 cracks and 0 shifted tetrapods afterward. Today, a helicopter documents the finished wall from above. Evacuation staircases built with real crowd flow signs stand ready, and people now walk dogs and jog along the top every morning. A symbol of grief, quietly become part of daily life.